And then I told her, no, that shoe goes on the other foot. Hey, are we live?
That's
we're
terrible.
live. Okay.
This is the kind of humor you can expect to see in Kamen America too.
That's why I'm not the writer.
Is it too early to get a refund?
Never too early.
I'm doing it right now.
How do I fill out my survey? Can I change my
I never fill out those surveys. Are a bunch of crap. I never fill those out.
Well, it's because you do like either donations or the digital.
Yeah, right? I think it's yeah, I think on the previous one it was digital, but yeah, usually I just donate $5 for the just because option, because I'm all in favor of just like here is some money.
Oh, but if you're gonna donate, let's say $5, why not just donate it to the digital because it's $5?
I usually don't even notice that I've already donated. And it's like, oh, oops, well, whatever.
You're a real mensch. That's how kind you are. You're like, I just want to give these guys a tip. Well,
really, I hear the opposite.
I will send you stuff.
You're quite the opposite from people sometimes, but okay.
We try to be nice.
Take it.
we work in academia, and so we have to be polite. There's an ethical way of behaving. But anyway, everyone joining us tonight, thank you so much. This is the Kamen America debut stream, I guess. I have been gone for a while, and it's because I've been wrapping up production on Kamen America 2. I've actually been off for the last week because we're in that kind of post-production, pre-fulfillment phase. So Iconic Comics, they're down the street from me. They're only 3 miles away, but I coordinate with them every day to make sure that the shipments for Black Ops are where they need to be and everything is on schedule. And that is a crazy fulfillment, most notably because we did not have a tier that combined both books together. So I'm having to deal with a list of people who had special requests. And obviously with the survey system, everything gets messed up at the last minute. Some people change their pledge. Some people up it. Some people have their pledges denied for whatever reason. So it's just been crazy. So luckily I've had Mark holding in the fort, and I think he's been posting 1 or 2 videos a week. So that's been good. But like I said, I just wanted to stop by and make sure that we can stream tonight, just to say that Kamen America 2 has been successfully funded. I have links to every book we're going to be talking about tonight in our description. There's Skinny with a copy of the first one. Yes.
Oh,
with the holographic cover.
Here. I don't have Black Ops next to me, but I've also got Soul Finder. I've been rereading this one because this book was awesome too. And then, of course,
there's the Walmart right there. Well, I'm glad. And you have been, I wanted to have you on specifically because at this time last year, we were pulling teeth trying to get funding for Black Ops 2 on Indiegogo. And I will repeat it till the day we retire. But you and Doug Garrett were so kind. I think you saw we were struggling in our 4th week. And you were like, hey, we want to help these guys out. And you had us on the show. And you really, I think we streamed for 2 hours until we made it past that hump. And I never forgot it, which is why I always tried to promote you guys whenever possible. And I'm glad we're going to talk about your book too, OTIS STEIN. And you blew through your goal within 24 hours. And I just thought there was no person that I know that's probably more deserving based on a reward of kindness than that. So we'll be talking about OTIS STEIN too here in just a second. But what we're really excited about with Kamen America 2 is we surpassed our goal not only very quickly, but we surpassed our previous crowdfunding goal with Black Ops 3, which had set it for the 24-hour total. And I don't have the words to really express what that means to us, simply because I don't know the quality of our own work. Mark and I entertain ourselves, and we think that what we like will hopefully entertain you. So
Tim looks at his art and he's like, is this shit? I don't know, maybe.
It's heartening when people, it's heartening to know that we don't have a platform, but people like our work. And regardless of whether it's 1 person or 10 people, 50 people, 100 people, when someone takes the time out of their day to just look at what you have to offer, that's really all you can ask for. And I think a year ago, I was thinking to myself, hey, we're going to keep on doing this, but there's no guarantee of success. I just think that if we keep on putting the work out and we have faith in our work, gradually people will enjoy it. And I'm just, I hope that that's the case. I hope people are seeing our stuff because they like it, not necessarily because some famous person told them to, even though if that famous person realistically liked our work and is legitimately trying to help us gain attention, I'm not opposed to that either. But it is very humbling. We're happy that we're funded, and I enjoy paying things forward. And so if we can help some smaller creators who are friends of ours get to that point, I will use whatever small platform that we have to do it. So thank you all for backing Kamen America 2. The link is in the description. I have the links to every single project we're going to talk about tonight in the description for this channel, so be sure to check them out. Skinny. So let's start with Skinny. You have Otis Stein, and I feel like I almost don't need to market this because you've been doing such a good job and you've breezed through your funding goal. So what I like about you, Matt, and I've told you this publicly and privately, is we know a lot of writers kind of in our community, but what I've always liked about you is that you're a good writer, but you don't have the ego. So Mark doesn't have an ego either, so he knows that. I beat up on him all the time. But what I also like about your presentation on Otis Stein, because you sent me about 4 drafts of it, you never once did the thing that Mark and I hate, which is we hate it when you pitch your book as it's X meets Y. And Thomas has heard me say, and Thomas is a good writer too. I've read several of his material, and he knows it's a pet peeve, and I think he agrees with me in terms of that.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I hate it too. I really do.
And I just thought it would be so easy for Matt to pitch it as like, hey, it's a Redneck Chainsaw Massacre meets classic Universal Monsters. You never did that. You just said, you know, when Otis is trying to make moonshine one day, there's a freak accident, and now his wife has to piece them back together and there's severe consequences. I was like, Matt, that is the heart and soul of a writer. You don't have to go to the X meets Y formula. You can tell someone cogently what your plot is about. And I just thought this is a clean campaign. It shows everything that's going to be in there. There's no excess material. It's very lean. I love it, and I'm glad to see that you got funded. So tell everyone listening about Otis Stein.
Oh yeah, Otis Stein. You know, as you said, Otis decides to make some moonshine. Blows up in his face, and his wife is emotionally distraught and just completely unhinged at this point. Decides to do the unthinkable, bring him back using dark magic, and pretty much that's the entire story. There's a lot more that goes into it, and basically it's blank meets blank. But no, it's great. It's my love letter to horror, man. Like, I love horror. I always have. I grew up watching it with my father, so there's a lot of influences in there. I'm not going to point them out to you. You'll pick them up if you know them, but you know, that's up to you.
No. Hold on. Wait a second. You got Mark in here, and Mark loves horror. And so I actually have been wanting to get the 2 of you on the stream to talk a little bit more about that, simply because I know you guys have probably not only influences, but references that only the 2 of you would understand, simply because of your fondness of the material. So what's one example so that we can get you and Mark kind of talking about it?
One example that, you know, people are going to pick up on it after I've said it now, but one really like subtle example of a reference is the cover is actually based on a still frame from Young Frankenstein with Gene Wilder standing over Peter Boyle.
Mm-hmm.
And like when I was working with the artist Carlos Rodriguez to design that cover, he's like, "What do you think about it?" So I just made this Photoshop mock-up where I took the scale of this image. I'm like, don't make it exactly like this, but you know, don't rip it off, don't trace it.
Cover your tracks, please, but make it like this.
But I was like, let's make an homage to this scene right here, because there's so many different little subtle references like that I put in this book, and they're not in your face. It's not going to be like one of these stupid things like when you're reading a comic book, like they'll mention Backstreet Boys or something like that. It's nothing.
Oh, what was it? I remember a few years ago I tried to reread The Ultimates by Mark Millar, the original one, and it has that part where Hulk is screaming about Freddie Prinze Jr. and like the last issue is Hulk trying to get Freddie Prinze Jr. and like, oh wow, this aged so gracefully.
Yeah, the only example I can come up with that actually made a little sense was I just now started watching The Boys, And there's that one scene where Billy Butcher is talking about, well, what about the Spice Girls?
Yeah, that's right. I don't think the Spice Girls aren't even mentioned in the comic, but in the show they're mentioned, and everyone's like, "What? What about them? Who? What? What are they? I never heard of them."
And it adds to the joke that it's dated too, because like everybody's watching it who don't know the Spice Girls. Like, what the hell? What is he talking about?
And sometimes it can work, especially if time period is essential for storytelling. I mean, that's really the only reason why it's really necessary. I mean, it's kind of like we were doing a stream a few weeks ago talking about Back to the Future, and if you rewatch it, it's interesting what you pick up on that you missed out the first time with. And when I was rewatching it a few months ago, what occurred to me was what makes that movie so good is the crucial timing, no pun intended, of everything that they cram into the first 10 minutes of the movie. Because it's kind of like one of those tests when you were a kid, where they basically have like a picture or a room or a picture of a room of like a bunch of objects, and you have to look at it, and then they take it away from you, and then they put it back, but there's something missing, and they're like, you have to tell us what's missing here. And what they do in Back to the Future is they present to you all these little new pieces of information, like, hey, the dog's name is Einstein, the guy's name is Doc Brown, his uncle went to prison, there's the Twin Pines Mall. There's these little things that you have to learn very quickly in 10 minutes, because for the rest of the movie, they're going to make references to how those things have changed. That's their point of reference in the film itself. And I just thought, like, well, I think that's, genius, because nowadays in a lot of movies and television, someone will say their name, and like 10 minutes later, I don't even remember who they are anymore. So for them to have it stick in your memory so that you can use it as a point of reference for the movie is quite astounding. So now, Skinny, when you say Young Frankenstein, my knowledge of horror is not as robust as yours or Mark's. I was not aware that was a horror movie. I always thought that was a comedy.
It was a comedy.
Yeah, it is, but it's attached to Frankenstein, and that is one of my favorite characters, and it's one of my favorite movies too, which is why I made reference to it. But like, the wife's name is Mary, of course.
Yeah, like Mary Shelley.
Mm-hmm.
Otis is actually, his character is based on Fred Gwynn, who played Herman Munster, and he's got a good career in horror too, because
Pet Sematary.
Pet Sematary, Sometimes Dead is Better. So there's just a ton of different little things in there that I throw in there. And I love comedy, man. Comedy and horror go hand in hand. They really do.
Yeah, that's why Evil Dead is such a success, because it's both terrifying and kind of silly at the same time. Because
Ghostbusters, Ghostbusters has a lot of
like
scary
that.
stuff in it. Yeah.
And I think it's because the reason why the two merge so well is because of the center of the brain where the activities of fight and flight both take place. And as a result of that, it's like you don't know. That's why some people in like anxious situations, they laugh. They have a nervous laughter because they don't know how to deal with it. So I think that the two merged together is like peanut butter and jelly. Like it just works so well together. But anyway, you said you like Frankenstein. Which movie incarnation is your favorite?
Oh man. Well, I already said it was Young Frankenstein, so now I gotta think of something else.
I was thinking about like the more serious versions. Like
I was going to say, does Young Frankenstein even count? It has Frankenstein in the title.
Yeah. But I'd have to go with the original, man. What's his name? Boris Karloff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one I grew up watching. I mean, I saw the other one. I forget what it was called. It had Robert De Niro as the monster.
Yeah, I was going to say the Robert
Mary
De Niro
Shelley's
one.
Frankenstein. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that one was good too, but like I'm attached to the Universal one.
We had we had one on the BBC like 10 years ago, and it was like a modern Frankenstein. Like modern science and shit like that.
Black?
Yeah, it was really bad.
No, I said black. Was he black? It was a joke.
Oh yeah, they Well, don't be too hard on yourself, Pickles. You also had the Hammer Frankenstein series, which is really good.
Yeah. There was also I, Frankenstein, and then Victor Frankenstein, which came out like the exact same time. Just about. I heard one of those was actually decent, but the other one was clearly not so much.
Yeah,
that's like saying like one of these bottles is poison and one of them is Coca-Cola. Drink one of them and find out.
Or drink both. You can drink both too.
You've got Godzilla versus Frankenstein, where they turn Frankenstein just into this, Malaysian-looking dude in a diaper.
Oh yeah. No, that was Frankenstein Conquers the World. Yeah, but that was a Toho one. He fights Baragon, the giant. I don't even know what Baragon is. He's like a Styrachodon mole armadillo thing that shoots lasers out of his horn.
Which one's the Frankenstein where he acts like a special person?
All of them.
All of them. Yeah.
I mean, you have like the one where he's kind of like a zombie or what have you. But like, there's one where it genuinely feels like he's come out of a care home. Like,
well, a lot of them are like that, which is really weird because the brain that Fritz steals in like the original Frankenstein, the Karloff one, it just says abnormal, and they got it from, I don't know, they said they got it from like a thief, a hanged man. So it doesn't make any sense why he's like retarded, why he's like, I love you, daddy.
Yeah, it kind of felt like I was like watching Lenny from Off Mice and Men or something.
Hey, but I like Lenny because he likes rabbits.
Oh, that's right. Is that your only criteria?
Yeah, that's the only criteria.
Is that what Mark's going to have to do to you someday?
Yeah, Mark is going to do that.
Tell you about the rabbits someday.
Mark, look over there. Why? What's over there?
I always liked that guy from Of Mice, and I felt so bad for him at the end because they shot him.
Or John Malkovich. Well, I mean, John Malkovich was in the remake. My mom hated that remake. She's like, "Oh, they make it too dirty."
The reason I never watched the movie is because the book is a really easy read. Like, you can finish it in an hour and a half, and it's
the Grapes of Wrath. Oh, boy.
I know, and it's Steinbeck. That's the most shocking thing. It's Steinbeck. People think of the Grapes of Wrath, which is a chore to get through.
Yeah.
But Of Mice and Men, maybe it's because of the simplicity of the material. It's almost like a metatextual thing, where it's like, no, you can speed read this sucker in like an hour and 40 minutes tops.
Sort of like that.
Everyone likes Of Mice and Men better because we probably had to read it like immediately after The Great Gatsby, and we're like, oh, thank God it's not The Great Gatsby anymore.
Or man, we had to read 3 of those books that were just agonizing. One was Gatsby. One was oh my gosh, it was
Catcher in the Rye.
No, Babbitt.
Oh,
Babbitt. Oh.
Yeah, Babbitt was basically like wannabe Gatsby, just worse. Like
To Kill a Mockingbird. That one's actually like really entertaining as a book.
love that book. That was probably my top 5 fiction books of all time. Along with
another good one was One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I read that when I was like 13 because my mom was like, "Oh, this is a classic," and I read it, and it's like it's kind of racist right at the beginning. And it's like, wow, cool.
Well, Skinny, what is it about the Frankenstein creature that you find so appealing?
Right, he's just a flawed, misunderstood character. That was my favorite part. Like, even in the Universal movie, like, he ends up drowning that girl. He doesn't do it on purpose, though. He just doesn't know any better, and he's just...
So he's like Lenny.
Misunderstood. And that's one thing that just... He's not a monster for the sake of being a monster. He's a monster because, he's retarded.
I'll be honest with you. I think I never liked Frankenstein's monster as a character until I saw the Monster Squad and the depiction of him in there. He's essentially the hero because he turns on like the other monsters to help the kids. And I think you're right. Having him be sympathetic makes him likable because he is basically like a child in a monster's body, and then that gave me an appreciation of like the Hulk because I never liked the Hulk as a character.
That was the inspiration behind the Hulk, wasn't it? Like
exactly,
Jekyll and Hyde, Frankenstein,
Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But I think the key difference between that and Jekyll and Hyde is underneath the persona of Hyde, you have Jekyll, whereas I think in the case of, let's say, Frankenstein's monster, he's essentially an abomination. Like, depending on which iteration you pick, he's a new creature comprised of parts from different humans. Yeah. So he really is.
The real monster there is actually the mob mentality.
Correct. Not understanding.
Society. It's not the monster himself. It's the people around him.
Right.
Yeah, and the concept of the very concept of misunderstanding is like the ultimate monster of like people judging things based on like, stuff that they don't fully understand.
Well, if you go back and you watch those old 1930s pre-code Universal horror films, it was I don't know if it was just in the movies or if it was a societal thing at the time, but people had less tolerance for ugly individuals back then. I was watching an old one called The Raven. It has Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff in it, and the plot of that one is that Boris Karloff is an escaped killer, and he shows up at the house of Bela Lugosi, and Bela Lugosi is a plastic surgeon. And Bela Lugosi finds out that he's an escaped killer, and he wants Boris Karloff to kill this guy who's the fiance of this girl he wants, who's coming over for a dinner party that night. So he disfigures Boris Karloff really badly, and says that if you want your face to ever be fixed, don't kill me. I'm the only one who's good enough to do it. So you have to kill this guy first. And so so Boris Karloff is acting like the manservant, and he comes in to serve dinner, but he's horribly disfigured. And the lady just starts screaming, and the man, the fiance, just gets up and goes, "You get out of here right now, away with you!" And then she's like, "Oh, he's hideous!" Everyone's just really roasting this guy just for being ugly.
Just offended he even dared to be in their presence.
Yeah. You watched what was it, The Hunchback with shoot, now I'm spacing on his name.
Quasimodo or Lon Chaney?
Lon Chaney.
Yeah.
I wanted to say Lon Chaney Jr., but I'm no, it was his father.
No, he's the Wolfman. Yeah, Lon Chaney Sr. was Quasimodo. Yeah.
And he did a lot of work. But you watch that movie, that's a brutal movie for the time, man. They're whipping
mass murdering people.
Is that the black and white one?
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that myself.
Just dumps boiling oil onto people, and they kind of deserve it, really. Or they entirely deserve it, perhaps.
Well, and he dies at the end. Esmeralda runs off with Phoebus, and he's the cuckold. It's I'm glad the woman I love is running off with a handsomer man than me. I can die now.
Woman respecter, fatally woman respecting.
So does that mean Phoebus is the base Chad and Quasimodo
exactly? Yeah,
is Antifa or whatever?
Or remember him in the Disney movie where he has blonde hair and a goatee?
Yeah,
I'm awesome.
Was he voiced by Mel Gibson?
He was voiced by someone famous and handsome.
I think it was. I'm pretty sure it was Mel Gibson because I think that's the second role that Mel Gibson.
Suddenly, I like him. I like him even more.
So my wife and I are probably going to watch Hunchback of Notre Dame again this weekend because we were watching the Disney live action remakes over the last weekend. Oh my gosh! Here's the funny thing. I'll just say this and then we're going to move on talk to Pickles. But so we were watching Beauty and the Beast. It was horrible. We were watching Aladdin. It was horrible. But I will say this. Now, this is the ultimate blasphemy. I thought Will Smith was a lot better than Robin Williams as the genie.
Oh, man. That's an unpopular opinion.
In my opinion, he was a lot more tolerable because he didn't have as many asides, not a lot of
celebrity impressions,
and stuff like that.
Weird, out of place, anachronistic celebrity impressions that don't make sense in or out of universe.
Right.
I'm not going to say I'm against that. I always liked the original Aladdin, though, and I don't know. It's hard to think of that movie without Robin Williams, but there can certainly be a good version of that movie without Robin Williams too. I mean, I always kind of liked him, but he's.
I mean, yeah, those impressions he does. I mean, some of them you could say are timeless, like Jack Nicholson. I mean, I guess that's got another 30 years on it that people will get that. But I mean, the part where he turns into Arsenio Hall, who in the year 2020 gets that? Little kids are watching that movie and "Mommy, why did Genie turn into a black guy and start barking like a dog? I don't get it."
All I can really think of is the Critic episode with. I don't know, some parody of the genie from Aladdin, and he was just oh wait, that's right, he goes into Star Trek, and it just doesn't make any sense. Oh god, that was good though, and that's I think that's better than Aladdin.
Tony S says, "Good thing you're not a writer, Tim." That is right. I am not a writer, and that's a damn good thing.
That
now
was
the bad thing.
Kevin Kline, not Mel Gibson.
Kevin Kline. Man, he disappeared off the face of the earth, didn't he? What's the last thing Kevin Kline did? He
was something recently. I forgot. The last thing I saw him in was Dave, and he was in I think he was in Kingsman. I think he was. Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay, I guess he's done just some stuff I haven't seen. But man,
what was he in Kingsman?
I could have sworn he was hold on, let me take a look real quick. Kevin Kline, Kingsman. He played the.
Because I was thinking, you're right. He just like disappeared. I mean, he used to be in a movie every year that was pretty big, and I don't know. Yeah, he's just gone.
I don't think he was in Kingsman. Never mind.
Okay,
I
was going to say that makes sense now.
Yeah.
Wasn't in Kingsman.
Let's see. Okay, let's move on and talk to Pickles. So Pickles, I know you're in trouble now, mister. So you have Vestri. Vestri did fund on Indiegogo, and then now you're on Kickstarter. And the key difference is on Kickstarter, you have the Matthew Weldon cover. And I'm happy to see that you had a goal of 500, and then you've actually surpassed that with still 8 days to go. So there's still enough time to generate something more. I've taken a look at this. I've read it. I make it a point not to review books on this channel, but I will say that if you look at the campaign and you look at Shabby's art and your writing, two things. One, Shabby's young. Holy cow. When we talk in private, he's like, Tim, I wish I could be like you, draw like you. And I'm like, Shabby, you're also like 15 years younger than me. Like, come on. If I could draw the way you do at your age with a digital medium, like, you're gonna be something really cool one day. So it's really neat to see kind of these young creators do this type of thing. But what you did with Vestri is you clearly have a very robust mind for world building. But what I like about it is you world build in the way that Robert Howard did for Conan the Barbarian. There's this temptation for a lot of people when they world build that they want to throw the whole map at you all at once. And the way that Robert E. Howard did it with Conan is he kind of just introduced you to one setting at a time and kind of gave you this overall idea of, hey, we're going to start here. And then as we branch out, things get more and more specific. And that's what I like about the way that you tell the story of Vestri. Very easy, very streamlined to get into. Sword and sorcery and stuff like that is actually not my forte, but I found that you played on each other's strengths very well. Shabby, I can tell, kind of likes the big muscular guy just killing a whole bunch of people. You seem to like the world building aspect, and so I think that team up was very synergistic, and it makes it flow really well. So, guys, if you're watching this right now, or if you're watching a replay, I'm going to post a link in the chat. But this is the link to Vestri over on Kickstarter. Pickles, tell us a little bit more about the project.
The project itself, it's going to be like 6 issues, and we're just following in the footsteps of Damon, who is the main character of the book. Vestri is the name of the world, actually, and as we follow his journey, let's just say, if you've read issue 1 and you see the ending of it, it's going to lead into more, I guess, complications for Damon. So it's going to get more epic per issue. And I guess we've also extended the first story arc to 6 issues, because it was going to be originally 5. But what we like to do is we like to take things, I guess, slow, but also involve a lot of action, if that makes any sense. But what I specifically like to do as well is when it comes to dialogue, I don't write a lot of it.
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. That is good. What is it? Brevity is the soul of wit, is what they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, because me and Chevy, when we talk about comics, we always talk about how much we hate how much has been written. It's like it distracts you from the art, which I don't want. Because when you read issue 2, you will see how much Shabby's changed improved in his art style. So yeah, I don't know if you've ever read a book and like it's all dialogue or narration.
Yeah, it's like Brian Michael Bendis.
Yeah.
Or Chris Claremont did a lot of that too back in
the day. You did mention the world building. We are going to be exploring different areas and stuff like that, but it's not going to be okay, we're here, And then a few pages later we're here, a few pages later we're here, and then so on and stuff like that, because it can be quite jarring. But what I can say is, because it's hard to talk about it and not spoil things. But I do think that we're onto something good here.
Well, what I like about it is that, and I think it's one of the reasons why I'm more accepting of Conan than I am of, let's say, I don't know, Dungeons and Dragons, Lord of the Rings, that type of thing. So apparently, and someone will correct me in the chat, I'm sure. Apparently, in fantasy stories, you have like high fantasy, low fantasy, and then even in that you have like sword and sandal versus something else. But Conan the Barbarian is more of, it's a down-to-earth type of fantasy where it's just basically, hey, just imagine kind of a rustic, ancient, dark age time where there's a guy with the sword going on adventures. And so it's actually pretty low on the magic. He's not going to be fighting behemoths and things of this nature. I mean, he will fight like monsters and things that are more otherworldly, but it's not so much a stretch of the imagination to think that he could do these things. In that sense, one could argue it's not as epic, even though I disagree, because obviously he has his own story arc. And I think that's one reason why I think Vestri is appealing, because it seems to more or less follow in that same vein. It's pretty down to earth. Damon is a guy's guy going through kind of this tough wilderness, and he's not intimidated by anything. And that's refreshing, because I know that Thomas is a big fan of like Berserk, for example. And I think part of the reason why that book has a resounding appeal amongst manga and Western audiences is because it's a type of story you don't see much of nowadays. It's a man's man kind of living in a dangerous world, and he's fearless, and he's not very poetic. He's not very, I don't want to say thoughtful, but he doesn't waste a lot of time in terms of dwelling on things. He's basically a man of action. So I just wanted to know that, like, how much of that was deliberate on your part? Is it born out of a natural love of that type of storytelling?
I guess so, because when I came onto Vestri, Damon to me, he looked like a big, massive man's man, as you said. Because I didn't write Vestri issue 0. If you compare the dialogues, Damon is very talkative and stuff like that. That's not how I imagined him. If you just look at him. So I wanted to go with a very, just gets on with it kind of approach.
Right.
But as you said, you say it's like down to earth, but I guess I can go into like spoiler territory. He will be gaining power, but because he's not a very poetic person, he's more of a just, a brute. He doesn't exactly know what to do with it, so he just does what he normally does and punches things.
I wouldn't say he's a brute. He reminds me of Frank Castle, the way Garth Ennis writes him. It would be wrong to characterize him as like stupid or whatchamacallit.
I would say he's more battle smart.
Smart, yeah, common sense.
He's pragmatic. Yeah.
Pragmatic.
Violent problem solver.
A violent problem solver.
Yeah, that's how I think of the Punisher, especially. He's just a guy who solves problems with lots and lots of violence.
And it's funny because Punisher is honestly my favorite Marvel book. Like in the last decade, I've picked up pretty much anything that Garth Ennis writes with Punisher. I'll pick it up. And the irony about it is that it is kind of a verbose book because he has a lot of narration, but it's really rare that Frank Castle does a lot of the narration. A lot of times, even when he does soliloquy, it's very poignant and it's very quick. None of it is very. He's kind of like Donald Trump in that way. He doesn't rely on verbosity to get a point across, So I like that term, violent problem.
Yeah. Most of his narration is about a gun he happens to be using at that point. It's like, the M16. It was made in 1967 by Eugene Stoner, and just all these gun facts. And it's like, thank you, Frank Castle. Thank you for making narration about just gun porn, and it's like, because that's kind of missing from a lot of comics. Comics could have so much more of that. Gunsmith Cats has lots of it. Why can't American comics?
I love Gunsmith Cats. I'm glad you reminded me of that. I actually that was the first manga I ever bought because I love the series, and the series wasn't that long, was it?
Speaking of Punisher, though, that was kind of like my inspiration behind Damon a bit.
Oh yeah, tell us about it.
Because Punisher, like we've said, he's not a talkative guy. He sees a bad target, he eliminates him. That kind of thing. He's not eloquent like Black Widow or Elektra. He just does what he wants to do, basically. He's not doing any like fancy flips or clips or anything like that. He's just a man, basically. Yeah. But also, speaking of Punisher, did any of you read the Kill Crew? Punisher Kill Crew.
Oh, Punisher Kill Crew. Yeah.
Yeah. That was a good read.
Yeah. All of Punisher is a good read. After I picked up all the modern stuff, I went back and started reading the Mike Baron Punisher. It is really good. And Mike Baron has this I don't want to say it's something that Mark and I try to emulate, because we stumbled onto Baron, or I stumbled onto Baron way after we started making books. But Baron has this innate ability to take a ridiculous concept and make it work, whether it be make it funny, make it ridiculous. I mean, I bought this book at a used bookstore. It was called Punisher G-Force, I think. It was basically Punisher in space before Punisher in space was a thing like a year ago. And it's literally like drug dealers are trying to use like a launch pad in Miami to like send cocaine all across the world. And it's the Punisher in like a space shuttle, like killing dudes. And the whole time you're reading it, there's not a part of you that's like, this is dumb, I'm going to put this down. You're just like, whoa, how the heck did he write this and make it actually work?
If people don't know what Punisher Kill Crew is, just imagine Punisher but in like Asgard. the 10 realms where you're just killing, the snow giants.
It's so good.
It just comes across people like Juggernaut.
Jim Tuner in the chat, that he's the AI that follows us around, and it's like always right whenever he talks. It's really eerie.
One of the most advanced AIs ever.
He is a very advanced AI. He says Conan is walking around in a wrecked world as a kind of tourist. The magic and monsters in it are leftovers in decline from the past. That is, I don't even know of a better way to.
That's the story of Conan, because that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I don't have you. If you haven't, pick up the Dark Horse series. They basically remade all of the classic Marvel stories, and they're really good. I mean, like, so there's three mainstream books titles that essentially have the same archetypical protagonist, just in different worlds, and Mark and I keep up with them. So Punisher is obviously in a modern setting, it's urban. Conan is like kind of in the ancient world of, the Dark Ages or whatever it might be, and then Jonah Hex is like Punisher in the Wild West. Same exact archetype. These kind of what do you call it?
The anti-hero,
anti-hero anthology type stories. Really good. Conan, pick up volume 1, and I think you'll be hooked. Just make sure it's that dark. I don't think they publish them anymore, but it's the Dark Horse series written by Kurt Busiek.
Yeah, there's a Marvel series that's finally getting reprinted, but I mean, it's good. I like the Roy Thomas era. I think the Dark Horse one, the Kurt Busiek era, is a bit more accessible now. The Roy Thomas one was from that Chris Claremont era where there's a whole lot of prose, and it's not bad. You just have to feel like reading. But like, I've read the Conan. I've read all the original Robert E. Howard texts, and yeah, that description of Conan, he is a tourist in the world, and in a way, because he was born after the heights of sorcery and magic and monsters, but before like modern civilization. He's in the Hyborian age, so he's just kind of like wandering around. He'll wander into an abandoned city where there's some sort of like Cthulhuoid monster hanging around, and like priests and stuff, and he's just like, get the fuck out of my way. I'm trying to find some wine. He knows that stuff exists because he's not stupid. He just doesn't care about any of it. He's just all in his way.
I think you would like them, Thomas. Especially like Mark. Have you read the Conan physical books? Like not the comics, but the actual prose.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. The original Robert E. Howard
Right.
text.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. I wasn't paying attention. I thought you were talking about the Dark Horse. I thought you were talking about the graphic novel format ones.
I may have read those too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I read the first issue of the new series of Conan by Marvel. And that was actually good. That's good. The first issue. Who's
the writer on that? I know it's a high profile guy.
Jason Aaron, I think.
Jason Aaron. Okay, I can see that because Jason Aaron has worked with anti-heroes before, like Ghost Rider, and Venom as well. So I can kind of see that one working. Or you could read the Robert E. Howard Conan books. That's true. There's someone in the chat that I want to bring up. I think I missed them when they were here before. So most people who follow me know that I'm pretty much only friends with writers. I'm not friends with many artists. I have a long diatribe about that. I'm not going to get into it, but it basically boils down to how I think they behave. But when I do meet artists that I like and who are on time and whose quality of work is good, I like talking about them. That's why I'm really good friends with Matthew Weldon, because he's my boy. Like, we hang out on Fridays, we eat a lot, and we talk, and he's just a good guy. But this guy in the chat, ArtMark88, so he's on Twitter. You can follow him at ArtMark88. He draws in a trigger style, and I had hit him up for some work earlier this year, and I think he was under some deadlines, and when he freed up, we just got through of our budget for 2020, 2021, but I am going to hire him for next year to work on some stuff. But this guy's open for work. His commissions are open. He is fast, he's reliable, and the quality is good. So I like to make sure in these economic times to support people who can actually put the work out. So be sure to hit him up if you're out there and you're looking for pinups, posters, covers, concept art, whatever it might be. His art style is like Trigger. Mark knows, I know, Thomas knows. I'm pretty big. I don't want to say fans, but we like Trigger as an animation studio. We like what they do, and our aesthetic follows that as well. So make sure to give him a shout out or give him some work if you're looking for that. Real quick, Pickles. So is there anything else about Vestri that you want to talk about? You're 8 days away to go. I'm guessing between Indiegogo and Kickstarter, you're pretty satisfied with the number of backers you've been getting and the attention you've been receiving?
Yeah, I'm very happy with it. I think altogether it's about 141 backers, which I'm very, very happy about, as you can probably imagine. And obviously we've managed to get Weldon onto our book, which, is incredible. As Tim actually got us in contact with Weldon. And for issue 2, we've got Sashi doing a drawing for us.
Wait, is this an announcement, or have you announced this before?
I don't know.
I don't think you told anyone. This is really cool.
Kind of an announcement then.
Sashi is doing I guess a poster. She's already done it. She sent it to Shabby, and it looks amazing.
Wait, is it a chick or is it the dude? Is it Damon?
It's the chick.
Definitely makes sense.
I don't think I've ever seen Sashi draw a guy.
I remember I was speaking to Sashi because me and Shabby are real good friends with Sashi. We were speaking to her, and I was like, "Why don't we draw both of them? Why don't we have a man and the dude?" She's like, "Nah." She's like, I did one once for Brian, and yes. She said she didn't get much attention from the dude. And it was like, fair enough, let's just do the female then.
Heck, I mean, when you're comfortable drawing what you're good at, stick to it. You can't blame anyone for doing that. What was I gonna say? A badge of honor would be to one day be invited to the circle of international friends, because I'm friends with like you and Shabby in one group. I'm friends with Sashi in another, but I know what you guys are up to. I know you have that little group of international people, and maybe
we actually do.
You guys need an Asian in there.
We do.
Yeah, it's like United Nations.
We have someone from Malaysia there.
Oh, dang it! Can't punch that ticket, unfortunately.
I know an artist guy in Malaysia. I know he's a different guy though. He's not really a comics guy either. He just does funny doodles. Yeah, Noteful guy on Twitter. He does
What's
a lot
his
of
name?
cute little happy doodles. He's from Malaysia.
Thomas, you know a lot of. I'll be honest. I get a lot of my artists' Rolodexes from you because
I don't even know. I mean, I know a lot of artists. A lot of them end up just being fans of the blog from back in the day, but or I just met them through some way or another because I tried doing my own, just drawing a webcomic on my own as a goof, like, you know, with like on those doodle boards with just a mouse and keyboard, even though I couldn't even draw. I'd just be like, oh, I'm just going to draw some of these goofy ideas. And just like some of the people who saw them were like, I remember a couple of them, like Jerk and Ak from 4chan, they just drew them themselves. And I was like, oh, that's really cool, because it was just the thing I drew, but with actual art. And all of a sudden, I know like 2 artist friends, and I've still known them this whole time. And Jerk was the guy who did the art for literally #1.
Yeah, and a lot of the artists that you follow, I'm like, whoa, like that's a really cool retweet, and then I'll click on their profile and I'll be like, oh my gosh, why'd I see that? Like,
oh yeah, there's
like
quite a lot. Usually Igaka or Gloss or Krakow.
It's like not safe for work. Like, have we told you that funny
safe for life?
Have we told you that funny story about cute, sexy robots? So I found out.
I've heard this one, but it's always worth retelling. I know that.
I found out about them from Brian Ball, because Brian Ball hired. I don't want to say their gender because I don't know if they want anyone to know like who they are besides their name. But anyway, Brian was like, "Hey, if you want in on this, like it turns out that they have an opening because there was a commission that dropped off." So I was like, "Yes." So I contacted them and I said, "Hey, can you do this Kamen America piece?" And they're very, very nice, very good, and very affordable. I got it. I was super excited about it. Oh, it wasn't Kamen America, it was Black Ops. Anyway, so I was holding on to it, but then Cute Sexy Robots posted on Twitter, and then I showed it to Mark, and I said, "Hey, you know, the cat's out of the bag, but this is our back cover." And Mark was like, "That's nice." Like a few minutes later, it's like, "You do know they draw hentai and porn, right?" And I was like, "What?" I had no idea.
And lots of it.
Yeah, and it's not all dirty. Like you just basically tell them.
Oh, it's all dirty, Tim. It's all dirty.
Well, again, it's dirty, but again, not to the level like of Krakow or Igaka. Certainly.
Yeah,
there's no scatological porn in there, which is nice. Thank you.
Yeah. So I try to hire some artists who maybe skirt the line where it's kind of like, okay, as long as I'm not looking through your feed and it's just like one orifice after the other.
Porn nightmare of like just prolapse or something. You know,
the worst stuff, like stuff I don't want to see ever again.
I've shown you some of that. I know that.
Oh, Skinny said, I just followed you, Art Market. This guy is really good. Like I said, when we were doing our budget like 2 months ago, I was like, oh, just missed it. But, you know, once we hit around December, we're going to start planning out our work for 2021. And he's on my list. And there's another guy, I posted about him an hour ago. This guy is going to blow up, but his name is Scott Malin, and he's on Twitter.
I have seen him too. You also compared him to like Trigger's art style too.
Yes, I did. And
yeah, stuff is good.
I love his work. And when I found, and what I like about him is this. So I've been down on American artists recently because I'm like, man, all these American artists, like they're late, they're egotistical, they can't get anything on time, they're expensive. I mean, this year alone, I think like 90% of everyone I've hired has been a foreign artist. Mm-hmm. But when I find an American artist, and they're typically like pretty young, and when I know that they're in a good price range, the quality is above par, and I know that they can deliver on time, like I'm going to hire you consistently. And it's the same thing with, like, I was laughing about with Mark Genzelman. He is great. He's affordable if you can, you know, budget for it, but he is punctual in the sense that when you tell him a date, he will turn it in on that date. Don't expect anything before and don't expect anything later. It is going to be when it is. And last night I was sweating because he was supposed to get that variant cover to me. And I'm like, where is it? And sure enough, 5:45 in the morning, He's like, here it is. I was like, oh my gosh, this is cutting it way too close. But
he's like those cable guys who say that we'll show up between the hours of 11 a.m. and 5 p.m. and he shows up at 4:59. Like, I'm not late.
That's right. You know, he shows up, and there's some artists out there who we've done.
He can definitely get away with it, of course.
Yeah, yeah.
So you're telling me you hire people based on merit? That's unheard of, Tim. I got to wow.
I hire people based on merit. I know that you guys do too. So Shabby, right? And this is what I like about Shabby. Shabby's a young guy, but he has the fire under his ass where he is going to put that work in. You know, when he's not at work, he's just
he's a workaholic. That's how
he's a workaholic, right? And I know Skinny, your artist, is basically like, I want to make a comic, and you're like, I do too. Let's do this.
Yeah, he's already hitting me up in DMs right now. He's like, all right, let's get started on number 2. And I'm like, all right. He's like, what do you need me to draw? I'm like, give me about a day.
Yeah, exactly. And the passion is there, and you negotiate it. You know, what is it that both parties want to get out of it? Obviously, you want to get paid for something, or at least make it worth your while. And I like that. Those are the qualities of good teams.
Yeah. And easy to work with. I've had artists where I'm like, I need you to make this, little correction, and then they just argue with me about it. They're like, well, I don't think it needs to be done. And got it. But with this guy, I'm like, hey, can you change this? And then he doesn't even respond. It's like 5 minutes later, he sends it back to me, and he's changed it. Whoa! Thank you.
Me and Shabby are like that.
Or like what?
Basically, we kind of, if we don't like something which the other one has done, we'll say it, and there won't be any. Well, I don't think that should be necessary or anything like that. It's like, yeah, we can try that, see how it looks, or reads.
Yeah, and that's a good mentality to have, because one thing, I mean, the only advice I think Mark and I will give to anyone who wants to get into this is that you have to see the writing and the art as mechanical processes. There's no ego involved. If someone tells you like, hey, your dude looks like they only have 2 fingers when they should have 5, that's not a personal slight against you. You should think about it as like, let's say you're building a room or an office building, and there's a rail in front of the bathroom, like the door. You don't take it personally because you put that there by accident. You're like, oh, my bad, let me fix it. And that's really the mentality that you should have. You know, when Mark and I are going back and forth in the scripts, I have to cut out a lot of dialogue, but he never takes it personally, because it's just like, it literally won't fit in the panel. If you don't mind, I took like 10 words and I shortened it to 4. And he never takes it personally, because it's like, you got to do what you got to do to make it work. And I think that that's healthy, and that's what you should be doing as far as how you look at projects and stuff.
Yeah, don't take it as a personal attack. It's not.
Right.
Take a chill pill.
Speaking of Shabby as well, are you putting in his Pickle Kamen America, if you remember that, Tim?
Yeah, what about it?
I mean, is it going to be in Kamen America too?
Oh yeah. I need to run this idea by Shabby. Actually, no, I need to run the idea by Mark. But I wanted to introduce a love interest for one of the characters, and I was going to base a character on Shabby, but not call him Shabby, just in case Shabby and I have a falling out or a divorce. Then he won't sue me for IP property rights or anything. But it's funny because we always make fun of how Damon looks like Shabby, and I was like, that's a self-insert character. But guys, if you've never seen Shabby before, like the artist, he literally looks like Damon. Like, he's like this buff European dude with a gnarly beard, like an awesome beard, who has the coolest accent ever. He sounds like Dolph Lundgren.
Correction though, Shabby does not have a gnarly beard.
He does not. You don't like his beard?
No, I have a bad beard.
I don't think I've ever seen a photo of you, Pickles. I've seen your avatar.
There's been pictures of me on Twitter.
On where? OnlyFans?
Yeah, for only $5.
Only $5. You're, selling yourself short there, man.
What a savings.
Yeah, exactly. last but not least, because I don't want to keep everyone here all night, let's talk about Villains of the Snow Sea. Now, I know, Thomas, you have a couple things that you have up right now. You have Literally, that's still on Comixology. I put up Villains of the Snow Sea because that's your most recent work, and you're doing something that's actually kind of, I don't want to say bold or new, but it is new as far as something that outside of John Della Rose, not many people have tried, which is you're going the Amazon route. Tell us a little bit more about why you chose that specifically, because honestly, I don't know much about it. John Della Rose has been trying to get me to do it for the longest time, and I'm just like, it's just a matter of just education. I don't even know where to begin, and honestly, I don't even know if I have the time to learn.
Yeah, that was kind of the reason I started, because I saw him do it, and I had a couple books, they were novels actually, on Amazon, and you know, Create Space was like, you can turn these things into physical copies, and so I registered with Create Space back in the day, and it was like 2015, and then Amazon just bought Create Space, and then they bought Comixology too, and so now Amazon has their own kind of print on demand, and that was originally, they call it paperback, so it's, you know, kind of the implication even is that it's more for a novel or something, but it works with comic books, and I was kind of surprised how well it works. The thing is that getting it to work is definitely the hard part, because you have to do all sorts of goofy stuff with PDFs, and me and the artist for Literally were like, I remember for 10 straight hours one day, he would send me a PDF. It'd be a certain size. I would upload it to see how it would come out in the preview, and it would be like way too big. It would be all zoomed in on one corner or something, and we're just like, what's going on? Why? Who? How? Why? What? And you know, and it was like, is it going to be explained in this video on this part of the site on Amazon? And it just eventually we got it figured out after just probably the most trial and error humanly possible, because we didn't just figure out every way to do it wrong. We figured out every way to do it wrong, then backtracked to previous ways we had done it wrong again, over again. That was the entire first day, just going back and forth. And I even, like, not to whore him out or anything, but I told him, was like, you know, it's measuring it by the lower left corner, so you got to size it by that. And then, like, after 20 PDFs that took hours to upload and preview and didn't work, he was like, you know, I think it's sizing them by the lower left corner. And it's like, yeah, I said that many hours ago. But we were getting closer by the end, and I was like, bye, I gotta go sleep. Next day, we get it fired out. We get it all figured out. The other problem with that is that's just the interior. Then the cover operates by its own rules, and you have to have a separate PDF. I don't even know how to make PDFs. So again, that's as far as it being a bold move, it definitely is a bold move for whatever poor sucker is the artist for the comic, because they're going to be handling this, not me. I still don't know how to make PDFs, and I don't think I ever will. But you have to, like, it's kind of an artist job, because they have to know it's got to be, you know, the right size, the right dimension,
Yeah.
the right resolution, DPI. It's got to be that stuff that the artist kind of needs to understand. And so with Villains of the Snow Sea, I was working with an artist, and he finished the comic like a day or two after we figured out the whole Literally #1 paperback situation. And I was like posting it on a Discord server for King Wolf Comics, where all our artists are working right now. And so he was seeing the process, and I was taking screenshots of like, okay, here's, you know, uploaded this, here's how zoomed in, it's a big mess and that kind of stuff. Until eventually we were figuring out, I was like, okay, I did this. I turned off bleed for the interior, even though it's a comic book, you're not supposed to. But I did that, and it makes the images centered. And then it's like, okay, it's going to be 6x9, which I know is smaller than normal for a comic book, but we're going to make it 6x9 because it's, you know, a nice standard that's just easy to click on. And you know, it'll still fit and look good. And then, but you have to upload the PDF itself. The interiors have to be just a little smaller than 6x9, because if it goes past these dotted lines, you know, so I spent like a week plus just doing that every single day with the first comic. And so when Villains of the Snow Sea was finished, we kind of, all of us knew, me and the artist knew how to sort of get it nailed down. And so he got it, he got a good PDF in like one day that worked on the site and was approved, because Amazon does have to like physically review how it look, just so that they're sure. It's a good way to sort of re-verify. And then there's all these benefits, of course, of having Amazon handle this, is that the cost of printing is covered by the price of just buying the book. So I don't have to have so many thousands of dollars or whatever ahead of time to print a number of books that I'm not even sure people will buy, or, you know, have to have so many extras in case these get lost or whatever. All of that the printing, the fulfillment, all of it's just handled by Amazon. So it's got those sort of downsides. But then, you know,
it seems to me that there's only one major downside. And I think if you're like a manga reader, I don't think that this matters as much, but Western audiences for sure, I think it will, which is, tell me if I'm wrong about this, but how much control do you have over things like the paper quality and the cover quality and stuff like that, like the physical aspects of the printing?
There are 3 settings for the paper quality ones, just like black and white, and that's meant for novels.
Sure.
And then another is, I think there's like a cheaper black and white, and then there's like high color, high quality color interior. And it's like the printing will be a little more expensive for that, but it's about what you would expect. It's like per book. Because when you put up the book, when you finalize it, and it's like, okay, and so how much are you going to charge for this? It tells you the cost of the print for the book is like $3.65. And that's going right into the price built in. And
Correct.
So you know that ahead of time. And that's nice to know. And I got I got proof copies, and I bought myself a copy of literally #1.
Do they mail you the proof copy gratis, or do you have to pay for the proof?
You have to pay like a reduced cost. It's like basically you just pay for the print, and I think with a slight reduced price. So it's like it was about $4-ish, I think, for a proof. I don't think it was even that, actually. I think it was like $1.75 for a proof copy. But the thing is, they print that big stripe across it that says "not for resale."
I actually like that. That's kind of cool, because it means that's like one of a kind thing.
Yeah, I could theoretically sell that for even more. Which would be nice, I guess, in the future, if it's like, yeah, this is the super elite limited version. Those, there's only 2 of these in existence. So
right?
It could be worth like $1 billion. You could buy entire countries with this one day, but probably not. But anyways, yeah, it's still it's nice to get that preview, and it's really nice and smooth, and it's a nice paperback print. So it's glue bound in just a little book, even. So there's not even the whole staple situation, and there's also
that's situation. Good. That's typically the more expensive one. It's called pure binding, PUR.
Is that where they sew the pages in or something?
No, that's That's a bit different. That's Smythe sewing. So you have staples, which is the cheapest one. You have pure binding, or not saddle stitch. What's it called? Square binding, and then you have Smythe sewing. And Smythe sewing is expensive. That's typically what I think Doug TenNapel gets in all his books, because
it lasts longer.
Homes. Yeah, exactly. So that's really good knowing that. I think John De La Rose had told me the same thing about how his spines were bound that way. So that's really cool.
Yeah, you understand it's not like the most high quality like book putting together, but it's a nice, clean, clear, high quality print. It looks good. It's there's no fluting, as I wanted to make sure to point out. It's good color. It's good page and art quality on the paper and all that stuff, and then just bound nicely. Which one of the other big advantages of that paperback glue binding is you don't have to have it divisible by 4 pages. It can be like any kind of weird,
I was wondering about that, because I saw that your book is 31 pages, and I thought, wait a minute, how does that work? Because it's not divisible by 4.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be because it's that paperback glue binding. It just has to be, they just have to print like a, you know, a sheet that has one page on one side and the other page on the other side, and that's all you need, and that's pretty cool. And basically, like, you open it up and the inside of the front cover is just going to be blank. I don't think there's anything you can do about that. Then the inside of the back cover is going to be blank. And again, that's that can be a downside, but it's really a minor downside if you're, you know, if you're talking about like you know, a really small kind of you know, small press you know, really limited sort of a beginner. You know, if you're just getting started in making comic books, if you can just figure out the PDF situation, which can just be a lot of trial and error. And once you figure it out, and I would recommend to turn off bleed, because having bleed on, it measures it by that lower left corner, and it measures it really weirdly to a point where getting it just right is, I don't even know if it's possible or what. Or maybe it was just something we didn't try enough, but I prefer it where it's just no bleed, and, you know, you'll have that white border around the whole page. But you know, that's that specific kind of situation, and it makes it so much easier for me to not have to pay for printing a book to get these books out to people, because now people, for the first time ever, can actually buy a physical copy. Just click and, you know, right there.
Here's the other benefit of it too. Let's say that you sell 1 to 5 copies a month. Some people might be like, oh, that's not a lot. But that's 1 to 5 copies a month for perpetuity, right? So that adds up over time, because in kind of the long game sort of way, hopefully you gain momentum. But even if you were selling 5 copies a month, I mean, good God.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're at least paying for your gas at that point, because
yeah, and I don't have to have the books physically here sitting on
right, not taking up space or anything. That's
yeah,
good.
It just gets, and it's the copies I've noticed so far, the ones I've gotten for myself, all printed in the USA. I'm not sure where, but well, actually, it does say where. I don't know what the name of the shop or whatever is, but it says it's in a city in Illinois, and it's like, okay, neat.
Well, I want to let's go into your plot real quick, because I think I've kept people a little bit longer than we expected. But anyway,
we haven't even talked about the comic.
I have read the majority of the book. One thing that it has in common with with VESTRI.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about. VESTRI is like, wow, we wrote some comics that are really similar in a way.
Y'all have a very decompressed style, and that's not that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, very light on dialogue. That's when he was mentioning
very light on dialogue. Yeah, I mean this
and world building in a way, because that's really what most of that first chapter is. It's showing you how the world kind of works. And
what's eerie is that you and Pickles actually have the same setup for your books. On page 1 to page 2, you have, like, in the beginning there was these things that happened. In your case, is the Paladins, and it's like, and then they took over because they were raging assholes, and no one expected
it's like the super quick 1 page. I mean, in a way, it kind of reminds me of that Superman, All-Star Superman, where it's just like sums up Superman's entire story in one
page. Yeah. And for people who have followed SWC, for you guys, or your blog, then I think a lot of people might be aware of your character Laylee, who's shown up in a lot of scripts and a lot of your fiction. This is essentially kind of not necessarily a debut, but it's a nice introduction to her as a character. And
yeah, it's like a re-debut in a way, because she's been there was one comic, it's actually on Gumroad, it's called Kill Everything, and I wrote it as like a sort of a fun goof and a comic jam, and so I guess that's technically her comic debut. Her story debut was in a comic that I sort of came up with in around 2000, 2002-ish. And she didn't even have a name for 10 years after that, but she was more of an idea for a story. And eventually I wrote it as a novel, and that's how I got experience with, like, writing a novel, publishing it on Amazon, and then unpublishing it back off of Amazon. But still, yeah, it's so. I always felt like, there's a lot that can be done with her, and her original comic debut was going to be Inevitably Doomed, which was a comic I did a campaign for, I think early 2019, and it would have needed a lot of money to make sure that it would have got, because otherwise I would have taken money for it, and then it never would have been finished, probably because we wouldn't have gotten enough money to really fund all the art. But with this one, this is very, very different situation. And I'm not going to get too much into detail about how I funded this comic, but what I can say is that the next chapter is not only ready to go. The artist, Arxelay, who's really like hardcore dedicated, excellent artist, has a lot of actually a lot of experience, and he's already on page 2 of the second chapter right now, and he's about done with it and about to start page 3. And it's like I'm like, hold on a second, let me write more of chapter 2. It's like I want to proofread this a little more, but like he's drawing the comic so fast. Like he was finishing chapter 1, and I was like, I think this is only the rough draft. I need to write more of this or something. But he got through it, and I made sure to get through the script. I mean, the script was actually solid enough already, and he really nailed it.
Tell even though it's high on action and not that much dialogue, real quick, can you tell the people listening what is the general gist of this 31-page comic on Amazon?
Well, the first chapter, it's that introduction to Laylee, and it throws her into a revenge story, just kind of straightforward. You could almost say generic, but it's she
has powers. I wanted to ask you about this. So
it's not a JoJo reference, no.
No, that's not what I was gonna ask.
Oh.
So
okay.
she has the ability to kind of change her body into very lupine type.
Basically, a giant werewolf, sort of a almost werewolf spirit body that sort of can envelop her own physical form when she focuses on it. And she actually, in chapter 2, she will explain it a little more. But what I want to do in chapter 1 was visually explain it without any dialogue.
It's almost like an armor, like a shell around her, not her physically turning into any of this.
Yeah, exactly. And but it does have that like really advanced power too. So she could, theoretically just punch straight through somebody. But the thing is that because it requires physical contact, which I wanted to do my best to make sure that without narration or explaining in any dialogue, throughout the comic, I wanted people to see how it worked. So that's why it's sparse on dialogue for that. And even the artist was asking people like, hey, does this make sense? Does it make sense like this? And he was getting some good feedback from people, my brother, and asking people, and it's like, yeah, that's good, because me and him both are definitely on the same mindset of wanting to make sure that it's coherent without just filling up the page with words. I wanted to do as much world building and storytelling without any dialogue or narration as humanly possible.
And again, that's I've always said, like, I just judging from your scripts and also having read literally number 1, I know that you have a very good your storytelling style is really good. I mean, everyone on this panel, I've read your work, and I know that you have the chops in terms of not just the technical aspect of it, because that's the first thing I look at is like punctuation, grammar, and whatnot. But it's also the method of storytelling. So I think the people listening in the chat right now, I have not read Otis Stein yet. I did sign up for the physical copy of it though, so I'll be getting that once it goes. But I have read VESTRI. I have read, like I said, the majority of Villains of the Snow Sea. And if you like a lot of action and it gets right to the point, and just you wanting to know what the story is, it's pretty much summed up in like the first 5 pages, and then after that you're off for a good time.
Yeah, it's the rest of that first chapter is like one really big, like, brutal fight, and it's to show how the stakes, for an actual fight in this kind of story are going to be so much more, realistic and measured in a way. In still like a fantasy setting, there's going to be, actual injuries. People aren't just going to be punched through 100 walls and then get up and go, that's smart, something like that. That's really meaningless. Especially, I think you might be still a little surprised by the ending. It's as much as it's a short read. The ending, I think, is something a lot of people don't ever see in comic books, and it will lead directly to what happens in Chapter 2, which will be a lot lighter on action, but even more world building without, like, shoving it in your face, like, here is the world. The world works like this. These people do this. It's a lot of it's very visual, in a way, kind of slow burn, but also at the same time, it's setting up for this giant, I don't want to call it epic saga, but it's going to be this, big sort of continent spanning story that actually it's one of the things I like about Kamen America is, that it has that sort of relevance to things that we've experienced recently. And a lot of that is the basis for Villains of the Snow Sea, where and it's not even going to get into that for a while, but there's still going to be, adventures and traveling the world and a lot of I've been calling it a snow western because in a way it's kind of a western where the people are going across the wilderness.
It's like the Hateful Eight.
Yeah, in a way, yeah, with lots and lots of just snow, but it's like also like wilderness living and that kind of stuff, sort of living off the land. And this there's also elements of, like, sort of fictional technology. And that's another great thing about Arxley is that me and him have been really going back and forth, like, in pornographic detail about the kind of gun that Thomas uses when he shows up in the next chapter. That's fictional and has all these very specific elements. It's not like an actual firearm the way we would understand it, where it's like a wood carved and like some kind of steel paint jacketed, and then like the propellant is then painted onto the back, and then so you can fire the entire bullet. It's kind of like the turrets in Portal, where it's like 60% more bullet per bullet, and it's and it's just these weird kind of elements that I thought of for, like, what would a fictional setting of this kind of be with this kind of weird technology mixed with a little bit of alchemy and that kind of stuff. And again, that's just the world building. That's all just going to be the background. It's not going to, the story's not going to focus on that, but it's going to show that how that exists and how it works. And then it will build that with, basically the lives of these two characters as they sort of meet together and in a way commiserate all the way through the rest of their lives. And it's it's almost like borderline kind of a romantic story in that sense, because I always wanted to have Thomas and Laylee, they're sort of natural them against the world romantic types, but also with a lot of that action. I mean, she could basically rip a tree in half with her bare hands, so there's going to be a lot of interesting dynamic between them and between other people that they run across, or so there's this whole thing, and I've planned it all out to literally the end of their lives. So the entire story is basically ready to be written. I'm on chapter 3 right now already, and just I know exactly where the story is going to go. So that's all.
Real quick, well, we'll do round table. I know all three of you are working on sequels already to your books, so we'll start with Skinny. Skinny, when do you expect Otis Stein issue 2 to be ready tentatively?
I'm probably going to launch it. I mean, it really depends on launch. That's kind of up in the air. That's up to kind of working between us, Doug and Pickles with VESTRI and everything.
Sure.
But I should be done. We should be wrapping up February or March, somewhere around.
Cool.
So,
okay, good.
Yeah, it's a slow process, but we're doing what we can.
Well, you guys have day jobs, so I mean, like, obviously these things take time to do, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Being married, lots of things.
Yeah, for sure. Pickles, what about you? What about VESTRI issue 2?
Once Otis Stein is shipped.
Oh, so you're gonna wait on? So wait on progress. Where are you right now? VESTRI 2, are you done?
The flats are pretty much done. What needs to be done is the main colors and the lettering. So once the campaign for OTIS STEIN has been done, it should be done by then. I say should. So I should say, I should more accurately say, I'm hoping we can launch when OTIS STEIN is shipped, because me and Skinny, we're both under the Gravestone Press.
Right. So it's like an assembly line. You have to wait for one fulfillment to finish before you start the other one.
It doesn't feel.
Too, so.
I've talked to Doug about stuff like this. I don't feel comfortable when you launch 2 campaigns and you've not fulfilled the other one and stuff like that. So if there was OTIS STEIN and VESTRI issue 3, I wouldn't want them together, because it's a hard thing to explain, but basically it's not like anything against Skinny or anything like that. It's basically how do I compare it to something?
Well, no, I can step in and I can empathize with you, because we did the same thing. So we are in a very tight timetable, because I was like, all of these campaigns have to be fulfilled by the end of the year, before Christmas. And what our fulfillment said is, they said, hey, we're about to start shipping on Black Ops Omnibus. Why not just go ahead and launch your campaign? And I said, the timing is literally everything, because if I launch the campaign without any update talking about the shipping, even if I say like, hey, we're going to launch this campaign, we'll ship tomorrow on Black Ops, even that 1 day difference is enough to rile up some people, and they're going to be like, we're going to report you to Kickstarter, we're going to say something, because that's not cool. But it's like putting the cart before the horse. When you tell people and you assure them like 200, 300, 400 books have gone out today, we are launching this afternoon or launching tomorrow, that's it. Like, that's all you need to assuage, to get rid of people's fears that they might not be getting a book or being bamboozled or whatever. So I completely, get it.
Yes, that's what I'm getting at. Basically, say if me and Skinny launch at the same time, we know our books are already done, and it just needs to be, at the end of the days so we can ship. But the backers don't know that. Well, even if you tell them, there's still doubt. If you launch something, then 10 days later, something else from that same profile launches something else. It's like, wait, I ordered this. Does that mean I'm not getting it or anything? It's to avoid confusion, basically.
I completely agree. And not just that, but it's also, I feel like, a professional courtesy. Because, for example, there's a book I'm waiting on right now, and it's been delayed and delayed and delayed. And meanwhile, the guy has opened 3 other campaigns for 3 other books. And I messaged him and said, what are you doing? Like, where is this? Oh, it's happening. It's happening. I was like, can I get a refund? No, you can't get a refund, because, our progress is so good. We will be out by November. And I think I've just like, look, dude, if this isn't out by November, I am going to be knocking at your door again.
Is that someone whose comic we reviewed?
No, it's not. It's someone.
I know who it is, because I've backed the same book.
Right. And it's just like, look, and the quality looks good. So all of the projects that this guy's working on looks good. So I don't have a problem about that. It's that my problem is the ethical nature of you. It feels like you're ignoring your backers when you put them to the side and start working on something new. I don't think that's professional. I think that's borderline unethical in terms of how you should be conducting yourselves. And it is kind of a slow roll, where it's just like, okay, book 1, then book 2, book 3. But that's the side effect of crowdfunding, is people are paying you money ahead of time and getting the product after the fact. So it behooves you to put the customer first, because that's the least you can do for the money that they've given you ahead of time. And that's why I told our fulfillment, I said, as long as I can go into updates and say, yes, as of this morning, books have started going out, that gives me the peace of mind, and it assures readers that I have not forgotten about you. We are fulfilling your books, and that this is not going to be an issue like 3 days from now, because everyone should be getting a tracking number. So I get it. Like, I think that that's the right thing to do. Thomas, I know you're working on the 2nd book. When are you expecting that one to be finished?
That's the hardest thing for me, is that like at this point there's no work for me to do. It's just waiting for the artists, and for literally number 2, work kind of slowed down because the shutdown sort of messed with a couple of the artists.
Sure.
Their timetable got like really thrown out of whack. So it's I don't even know when that comic will come out. I'm hoping it'll be this year, but it may be next year, ideally early next year, but I think it could still come out this year. But as far as Villains of the Snow Sea #2, I'm very sure that it will be out within the next few months. He doesn't want me to make all these promises. The artist doesn't want me to make all these promises of how soon it will come out, but like considering how fast he's firing it out, I won't say 2 months. I'll say it, 3 or 4 months. It should definitely be out. It could be out sooner for all I know, but I'll also say that we can't say for sure what might happen, but 3 or 4 months I think is a pretty nice, easy timetable for Villains of the, and that's the one I'm really interested in making now. Even though literally #2 is going to be great, I'm really pumped for Villains of the Snow Sea to just be firing on full blast. And then at the same time, I'm also always looking for more artists who might be able to work on the many other scripts that I've had finished for a long time. But I mean, it's hard to find just the right artist sometimes too.
Yeah, it is. Real quick, Complica is in the chat. He says the customer is always first. You are absolutely correct, and you'd better be nice to your customers, or else the Complica will go after you. It reminds me of, I think the level of annoyance is like when you go to a fast food restaurant like a McDonald's, and you're like first in line and you order something, and then the second guy comes and orders something, and the second guy gets served first. It's that, except it's like the nth degree in terms of how miffed you are whenever you see that type of thing happening. So that is our business philosophy as far as our projects are concerned. Honestly, I would have waited until Black Ops 3 was completely fulfilled before launching Kamen America 2. But again, our timetable, I mean, I have this down to the day, and it's like there is just no way we're going to be able to get anything out before the holiday season unless we launch this week. So I was really happy that our fulfillment was able to get it done the way that it needs to be. So anyway, I just want to say thank you for all of our guests showing up today. Again, I apologize for being absent for like 2 weeks, but you see what I've been doing. I've been working. I think Mark revealed on the other stream that I had an ulcer. I was not getting much sleep. I was pretty much stressed all the time, but luckily I'm going to sit back and kind of calm down a little bit. I will begin on Kamen America 3 next Monday. I'll be looking over our script this weekend and getting back to Mark and talking about it. I'm very happy to everyone who has backed us so far. It means the world to us. We don't look at our backer listing. I don't know if you've backed us or not. I don't care. If you like the book, then you back it. If you don't, that's fine. I think that's a good thing to do, and the most I can do is respect that. And what I do respect, though, is even if you don't like the book or have the money for it, if you're sharing that link out and just getting word out there and saying, hey, you know what, it might not be my cup of tea, but these guys deliver on time, that's all we need to know, and that's all we need to hear. But we always respect the privacy and what our backers, our customers, and our readers are doing for us. So make sure to check it out. We launched this morning. We still have 30 days left. Afterwards, we'll go to Indiegogo. It will only be the remnants of the campaign. So, for example, I had some people on Indiegogo hit me up because they're like, hey, how come I can't add Volume 3 and the Omnibus together on Black Ops? And I said, well, if you looked at our updates, it's because I said it will be limited. There's no way we can mix and match all of those different things together in a realistic way. Everything has to be tiered and organized in a certain way. So if you're on the fence about it, and you want a copy, just make sure to get it now, because I cannot guarantee anything when we go to Indiegogo. Everything has to be done in a way where we can mail everything out in the post-Thanksgiving season and guarantee a Christmas delivery, which is what we want. So thank you so much. I don't know if Mark has any videos planned for this week. If not, we'll probably stream next week just to make sure that we keep the channel alive and going. But make sure to check these guys out. The links to their books are in the description for this show. But I want to say good night to everyone. Have a good week. Thank you for supporting us, and we'll talk to you